If you're learning Russian, you're probably familiar with a channel called Bankrupt, about an English guy traveling the world and mainly Russia and post-Soviet states and showing you a side of Russia that you probably have never seen before. And in this video, I want to not talk about his character or about his videos. I want to talk specifically about how he learned Russian and how he recommends other people to learn Russian.
Today, I want to talk about learning Russian, how I managed to learn Russian, and the number one tip for learning Russian that will save you months, years of wasted effort.
Why? Потому что я сам изучаю русский язык уже 6 лет, потому что у меня есть русская девушка. And for that reason, I think I got a couple of insights, like I got 3 points that are very good, how he recommends people learn Russian. But I also got 4 critical points that if you want to learn Russian, his method, that you should kind of watch out for a little bit. So let's get started. So the first thing that I massively agree with him is that vocabulary is probably the single most important part of learning Russian. Here's how he says it.
That's it. I am not going to learn the grammar. I'm just going to learn vocabulary. And ever since I did that, I made rapid and fast progress, quicker progress than all my friends.
So the reason why vocabulary is probably the single most important part in the beginning is because, let's take a scenario. You know 1,000 Russian words, but you don't know any grammar. You can still speak, you can just point at stuff. For example, if you're in a bakery, you want to say, I want to buy, two loaves of black bread. They have that in Russia. You can just say, я купить хлеб черный. It's like, I to buy bread dark. People will completely understand you, even though it would be more correct basically say, я бы хотел купить 2 куска черного хлеба. But still, the baker completely understands what you mean, especially if you point at it. And if you take the other side, where you a little amount of words, but you focus a lot on grammar, then, you cannot say anything. Second thing that I completely agree with is that the Russian alphabet is easy to learn. Here's how he says it.
Is it because of the alphabet's different than the Latin alphabet? Nah. That takes, 2 hours and you've learnt the alphabet. That's not a problem.
I really appreciate that, like an authority like him just tells it to everyone that the Russian alphabet is easy to learn, because every single time a person finds out that I speak Russian, very often like, oh, but wow, the alphabet, it should be so difficult to learn that. No, it's not difficult to learn that. There are just 33 characters, out of which 5 are already the same as in English, so that makes it you need to learn 28 new characters. If you spend 10 minutes a day for a week, you know enough to basically read basic text. And sure, the thing is, also, if you continue learning, you'll get better at the alphabet, and your pronunciation doesn't need to be perfect from the beginning. It's just, really, the alphabet is something that is very easy to learn. And the third thing that he does very well in telling other people is saying that cases are not important in order to be understood. Here's the example that he makes.
You should say, я вижу эту девушку, yeah? You've got to change the ending of all the words. Okay. But if I say, я вижу эту девушка, you think suddenly some Russian's going to be like, whoa, what the hell's he talking about? He didn't use the accusative case. I don't know what he's talking about. No, of course not.
And he's correct in it, because in most cases, like in 90% of times, when you say like a case incorrectly in Russian, people will still completely understand what you mean. And even if you make a mistake saying something that they might not completely understand, then they'll ask you for it. And then you can still explain whatever you meant. So Bankrupt's approach to learning Russian is basically learn vocabulary, and then just go and speak to people without shame. Just practice as much as you can. And this is a really great way to learn Russian. But there are a couple of things that I did notice after watching some of his videos that I do want you to know about if you want to approach his vocabulary-only method. The first critical point that I have about Bankrupt is that his Russian is actually not that good, and there are plenty of mistakes and there are not too many difficult constructions. And this is completely fine for someone who's new to learning. But if you I look up his biography basically online, it was very difficult to find like a lot of good information. But it said that somewhere in 1993 he met a Belarusian girl, and that in 2001 they divorced, and then later he also got another Belarusian girlfriend. But let's say 1993 is when his interest in Russian started, in the Russian culture, Russian women, and probably also the Russian language. Now it's 2022, which means that it's 29 years later. If you are interested in Russia for over 25 years, like for such a long period of time, your Russian should be better. Like, here's a simple example that I saw in one of his videos.
И что смешно, что Россия самая богатая страна в мире.
So he basically says, самый богатый страна. And it should be самая богатая страна. This is super elemental. If you say страна, it's a feminine noun, so the adjective should also be in the feminine way. Another thing I noticed is that, for example, at a certain point in one of his videos, he uses the genitive case with Belarus. So it should be из Беларуси. Like in the end it's E because it's a genitive case, but he says из Belarus. And this is just incorrect. And again, this is not a super easy part of the Russian language, but if you've been learning for decades, by now you should no longer make this mistake. The second critical point that I have against his vocabulary-only approach, and by leaving the grammar a little bit further away, is the fact that grammar comes in many different forms. He's very much against learning the cases in the beginning, and I completely agree with that. But the thing is, there are also stuff like verb conjugation. And verb conjugation is a little bit more difficult than it is in English, but there are also some specific parts that are very easy. For example, past tenses, if you have the verb to see, it's like видеть. But if you want to make it into the past tense, like I saw, all you do is take away the ending and put an L there. So you say, я видел, I saw. And this is something that for all the past tenses it's completely the same for all verbs. And this is super easy. And if you take the approach of, leaving grammar away, you're just not focusing on so many very low-hanging fruits that are so easy to learn and will improve your speech a lot. The third thing that I do want to mention about Bald and Bankrupt is the fact that he learned grammar before he took his vocabulary-only approach. You can see this in this part.
Quicker progress than the other people in the university courses that I did in the past.
So he says that he has been to university courses and everything, which meant that he already basically had a pretty normal overview of how grammar actually worked. And then later on, once he did his vocabulary-only approach, he still had all the basic grammar in the back. So then you get the vocabulary plus grammar. And if you're completely new to learning Russian and you're like, I completely do not want to learn this grammar, and you just focus on vocabulary, you do not have this background knowledge that he already had. It might seem to him that because he didn't know enough vocabulary in order to use the grammar that he learned at those courses, that it was all useless, the grammar that he learned. But once you get to a good point of learning words, the grammar suddenly becomes useful. The fourth thing that I want to mention here is that learning Russian, each part of it has an opportunity cost. Like if you're completely new to learning Russian, then yeah, sure, you should learn a lot of vocabulary because it's the basic, it's the foundation of speaking Russian. But once you've learned, let's say 500 words in the first couple of weeks, you have a choice. You can either learn another 500 words in the next month, or you can start adding basic parts of grammar that are very easy in the beginning, together with a little bit of more words. And if you just add more words and more words, at a certain point you're going to be like, okay, adding more words is not really going to help me with anything. It's not going to help me make my speech sound better. But if you start adding simple grammatical structures in the beginning, like for example, the prepositional case, the accusative case, those ones are very simple to grasp. Or you start learning verb conjugation, then all those things will suddenly make your speech sound much better than if you were to just learn another 1,000 words. So in reality, it's not like or vocabulary or grammar. It's just you learn vocabulary, you put the main focus on that, and at the same time, add like some grammar. Because once you know vocabulary, then suddenly grammar becomes interesting because you can apply it right away, which means that you'll better be able to remember it and that your speech will suddenly sound so much more fluent and so much more like a native speaker instead of just pointing at stuff and saying random words. So Benjamin, if you're seeing this, don't take my criticism too harshly. You're doing a great job. Like you learned Russian to a good standard. You can make yourself understandable to all Russian people. And that is something that not a lot of foreigners can do. Also, you're showing people on YouTube like a different side of Russia that no one else has seen. Like I've traveled to Russia quite a lot, but you show stuff that also I have never seen. And that is very cool. Спасибо вам огромное за просмотр. Я желаю вам удачи с изучением русского языка. До свидания.